Duke Alistair dismissed his wife with 3 sentences and 1 signature. You falsified the assay reports. You concealed losses belonging to the Crown, and as of this moment, you will never enter the Ravenscroft Mint again. The final sentence struck harder than the accusation. Duchess Helena stood beneath the great iron press while nearly 60 workers watched Lord Percival tear the brass nameplate from her laboratory door. 1 screw bounced across the stone floor, spinning like a coin before falling flat beside her shoe. For 6 years, Helena had tested every delivery of gold and silver entering the mint. She had detected weakened alloys, corrected defective dyes, and stopped dishonest suppliers before a single false coin reached circulation. Alistair had once praised her skill. In private, he had called her the reason Ravenscroft still held its royal contract. Today, he would not even meet her eyes. Percival placed the removed nameplate on the work table. Perhaps now this place can be run as a mint instead of a lady's private experiment. A few men lowered their heads. No one dared answer the Duke's younger brother. Helena looked at Alistair. You received my report concerning the missing gold. I received 11 pages of excuses. It was a warning. 3 consignments arrived under their recorded weight. And yet every document carried your approval mark. They carried a copy of it. Alistair's expression hardened. Must you accuse my brother merely because he discovered your errors? There it was, the choice he had been making for months. Percival flattered his ambition, promised faster production, and spoke of Helena's caution as though it were disobedience. Alistair had not been deceived all at once. He had dismissed 1 warning, then another, because believing his brother was more convenient than respecting his wife. Helena removed the brass assay key from her waist. If you give him this, she said quietly, you give him access to the dyes, the sealed samples, and every furnace record bearing your authority. I know precisely what I am giving him. No, Alistair, you know only whom you wish to punish. Color rose along his cheekbones. Take the key, he ordered. Percival stepped forward and pulled it from her open palm. Helena felt the finality of that small loss more sharply than she expected. Her father had designed the assay rooms before his death. He had taught her to judge metal by color, weight, sound, and the faint resistance it gave beneath a testing needle. The Crown contract belonged legally to the Ravenscroft estate, but the methods that had preserved it were hers. Now Percival wore the key at his belt, as though he had inherited her mind with it. Lady Ravenscroft will leave the county tomorrow morning, Alistair announced. Any employee who assists her in removing records or property from this building will be dismissed. A murmur traveled through the hall. Helena ignored it. Her attention had shifted to a wooden tray beside the press. 6 newly cut dies rested upon blue cloth. The king's profile appeared flawless at first glance. The line of the brow, the curve of the throat, the lettering around the rim. Then she saw the date. The final numeral leaned slightly forward. Helena's breath stopped. Years earlier, an injury to her smallest finger had left her with a distinctive hesitation when engraving a curved stroke. She compensated by cutting the lower line at an angle. The flaw was nearly invisible, but it appeared on every die she finished personally. It appeared on these dies. She had never touched them. Someone had copied not only her assay mark, but the imperfections of her hand. Percival noticed where she was looking and moved between Helena and the tray. You have been ordered to leave. She lifted her gaze to him. Beneath his pleasant expression, something watchful flickered. When were those dies made? You no longer possess the authority to ask. I am not asking as an officer of the mint. I am asking as the woman you intend to blame for them." Alistair descended from the inspection platform. "Enough." Helena turned toward him. For one brief moment, she searched his face for the man who had once sat beside her until dawn, while she corrected a contaminated silver batch. She found only a duke, terrified that doubt might make him appear weak before his workers. "If coins struck from those dies leave this building," she said, "your name will be responsible for every one of them." "They already have," Percival replied. The answer came too quickly. Before Helena could question him, hoofbeats thundered beyond the outer gates. The heavy doors opened, admitting 4 mounted royal guards and a courier in a rain-darkened coat. Every hammer in the mint fell silent. The courier entered carrying a narrow velvet box. "His Majesty's treasury requires the immediate presence of the Duke and Duchess of Ravenscroft." Alistair frowned. "On what matter?" The man placed the box upon the inspection table and raised its lid. Inside lay a gold sovereign, mottled with black flakes. Its surface had peeled away near the king's face, exposing dull copper beneath. A wave of whispers passed through the workers. "This coin was presented to His Majesty during this afternoon's council," the courier said. When he placed it in wine to demonstrate its purity, the liquid darkened. Alistair stared at the coin. Percival remained unnaturally still. The courier turned it over with a gloved finger. Near the edge was Helena's private assay notch. "The Treasury has received 43 complaints concerning coins from this mint," he continued. "All bear the Duchess's verification." "I did not test that coin," Helena said. The captain of the guards stepped toward her. "Then you may explain that in London." 2 guards moved to either side of her. Alistair opened his mouth, but Helena could not tell whether he meant to defend her or merely protect the family name. The courier closed the velvet box. As he passed Helena, his hand brushed hers. Something small and folded slipped beneath the cuff of her glove. She remained silent until the guards escorted her from the mint. Only inside the waiting carriage did she unfold the paper. 5 words had been written across it in hurried black ink. "Your husband signed the death warrant." Beneath the warning was a date, tomorrow. Then Helena noticed the red impression pressed faintly into the corner, the seal used exclusively for orders of execution at the Tower of London. And trapped within the wax was a single shaving of blackened gold. Helena read the warning 3 times before folding it along its original crease. The carriage rolled toward Ravenscroft Hall with 2 royal guards riding beside it. She had not been formally arrested, but the locked doors and drawn window shades left little doubt that freedom had become a courtesy the Crown could withdraw at any moment. She pressed the folded note beneath the lining of her glove. Tomorrow. But whose death warrant had Alistair signed? The most obvious answer was hers. Yet no lawful execution could follow without an investigation and trial. Even a duke could not condemn his wife by placing his signature on a private order. Unless the warrant belonged to someone else, someone whose death would prevent Helena from proving the coins were forged. Across from her, Captain Elias Mercer watched without speaking. He was perhaps 40, with a scar beneath his left ear and the stillness of a man trained to notice every concealed movement. "You slipped that note to me," Helena said. Mercer's expression did not change. "I handed you nothing. The courier carried the box. You stood close enough to place the paper beneath my glove. You should be more careful when making accusations. That is what my husband told me." A faint tension entered the captain's jaw. Helena leaned forward. "If you believe I corrupted the coinage, you would not warn me. If you believe I am innocent, then tell me who is meant to die." Mercer glanced toward the covered window. I believe 43 false sovereigns cannot be produced, stamped, inspected, and transported by one woman working alone. That is not an answer. It is the only one I can safely give while your coachman is employed by Lord Percival. Helena went still. Beyond the partition, the driver coughed. Mercer placed a finger against his lips, then drew a small notebook from inside his coat. He wrote a name and turned the page toward her. Samuel Reed. Helena recognized it immediately. Reed was the senior die cutter who had worked beside her father for 20 years. 3 weeks earlier, he had disappeared after sending Helena a message requesting a private meeting. Percival claimed the man had stolen silver and fled to France. Mercer added 2 words beneath the name, Newgate, Dawn. Helena's pulse sharpened. On what charge? She asked quietly. Treason. Samuel Reed is no traitor. The warrant says he made counterfeit dies for foreign agents. He would never cut the king's image without authorization. Mercer's gaze dropped to the glove concealing her note. Then perhaps someone does not intend for him to deny it. The carriage slowed beneath the stone archway of Ravenscroft Hall. Alistair was waiting at the entrance. He had returned by a faster road, and his anger had acquired the cold control he used before Parliament. Percival stood 1 step behind him, still wearing Helena's brass assay key. When the carriage door opened, Alistair addressed Mercer rather than his wife. The Duchess will remain in her apartments until our departure for London. I have instructions to escort both of you, Mercer replied. You may post your men at every door. My orders specify personal supervision. Alistair's eyes narrowed. This is my house, and those were the king's coins. For the first time that day, Helena saw Alistair confronted by an authority his title could not silence. He stepped aside. Inside the hall, servants watched Helena cross the marble floor. Some looked frightened, others avoided her eyes. By morning, the county would hear that its duchess had cheated the crown. By the end of the week, every improvement she had made to the mint would be remembered as preparation for theft. Public harm spread faster than truth. As Helena reached the staircase, Percival caught her arm. You should use tonight to prepare a confession. Mercer's hand moved toward his sword, but Helena answered before he could intervene. A confession would require me to know how the crime was committed. Percival smiled. You always were eager to explain your expertise, and you were always eager to profit from it. His fingers tightened. Helena looked down deliberately until he released her. Alistair had witnessed the exchange. He said nothing. That silence settled something inside her. For months, Helena had tried to preserve their marriage while warning Alistair that Percival was manipulating the mint accounts. She had softened evidence, chosen careful words, and waited for her husband to remember that trust was not obedience. She would wait no longer. My laboratory journals are part of my personal property, she said. I want them returned before we leave. They are evidence, Alistair replied. They contained formulas written by my father before our marriage. Everything inside the mint is under investigation. You mean everything is now under Percival's control? Alistair descended 1 step toward her. Must every sentence become a challenge? Only the ones built upon lies. Pain flashed across his face, quickly buried beneath pride. You will remain upstairs. Helena continued climbing. In her apartments, she found drawers emptied onto the carpet and books pulled from their shelves. Her jewelry box had been opened, though none of the jewels were missing. The search had not been for valuables. Someone had wanted papers. Her maid, Clara Bennet, stood near the wardrobe with a torn sleeve and a red mark across her cheek. Who did this to you? Helena asked. Lord Percival's secretary searched the rooms. I tried to stop him from taking your father's dispatch case." Helena crossed to the writing desk. The black leather case was gone. It had contained her father's original die sketches, his private assay formulas, and the register of verification marks known only to senior mint officers, every tool needed to imitate Helena's work. When was it taken? Less than an hour ago. Where did they carry it? Toward the east wing, Percival's rooms. Helena looked toward the corridor. A royal guard had already taken position outside her door. She could not reach the east wing openly, but Ravenscroft Hall had been her home for 9 years. Alistair knew its ceremonial rooms and hunting passages. Helena knew the service stairs, old ventilation shafts, and the narrow inspection corridor once used to carry estate records without disturbing guests. "Clara, bring me my gray traveling dress and the smallest lamp." Her maid hesitated. "The captain ordered us not to leave. I am not going to London tomorrow without knowing why Samuel Reed is scheduled to die." Clara stared at her. "Mr. Reed is alive?" For the next several hours. A sound came from the adjoining dressing room. Both women turned. The door stood slightly open. Helena took the fireplace poker and moved closer. She pulled the door wide. A young mint worker collapsed forward onto the carpet. Blood covered his shirt. One hand clutched the place beneath his ribs. The other held a broken piece of metal wrapped in cloth. Helena recognized him as Thomas Hale, an apprentice assigned to the night furnaces. "Your Grace," he gasped, "they changed the dies after you tested them." She knelt beside him. "Who did?" Thomas forced the metal fragment into her hand. It was part of a counterfeit die bearing her copied engraving stroke. Across its broken edge was a second emblem, the same crest used on Percival's private correspondence. Thomas seized her wrist. "Your husband did not sign Reed's warrant," he whispered. "He signed an order for 3 executions." Then the bedroom door burst open. Captain Mercer entered first, his sword drawn. Alistair followed and stopped when he saw Thomas bleeding on the carpet. "What happened?" Helena concealed the broken die inside her sleeve. "Send for a surgeon," she ordered. Alistair knelt beside the apprentice. "Who attacked you?" Thomas tried to answer, but blood rose at his lips. Percival appeared in the doorway. The moment Thomas saw him, terror crossed his face. "He needs air," Helena said. "Clara, open the window." While everyone looked away, Thomas pressed a tiny iron key into Helena's palm. "Furnace 3, he whispered. Then he lost consciousness. Mercer called 2 guards to carry him to a guest room. Percival immediately objected. "He broke into the Duchess's apartments. He should be restrained." "He will be guarded," Mercer replied, "and kept alive." Percival's smile vanished. Alistair turned to Helena. "Why did he come here?" "To tell me the dies were changed after I approved them." "He said that? You heard him?" "I heard only a wounded man struggling to breathe." Helena studied her husband. "Would you believe him if he spoke clearly, or would Percival explain his words for you?" Alistair flinched, but Percival intervened. "This is precisely how she concealed the losses. Every mistake becomes someone else's conspiracy." Helena removed the forged coin die from her sleeve and placed it on the table. Alistair picked it up. Her distinctive engraving flaw appeared beside Percival's crest. For one suspended moment, doubt entered his face. Percival recovered quickly. "She could have made this herself. Why would I mark it with your emblem?" "To frame me after your fraud was discovered." Helena almost laughed. "Convenient." Alistair closed his hand around the fragment. "No one leaves this room until Thomas wakes." "I must speak with Samuel Reed before dawn," Helena said. His head snapped toward her. "How do you know where Reed is?" "He is in Newgate, awaiting execution under a warrant connected to these coins." Percival's gaze shifted sharply toward Mercer. That single movement confirmed the captain's warning. Alistair rose. Reed fled to France. No. Someone hid him in prison and persuaded you to sign an order bearing his name. I signed authorization to transfer 3 accused counterfeiters for royal questioning. Helena's blood chilled. Who prepared the document? Alistair looked toward his brother. Percival answered calmly, my secretary. And did you read the final page? Helena asked. Silence followed. Alistair's grip tightened around the die. The document contained no execution order. You signed without checking the pages attached beneath it. His face revealed the truth before he spoke. I reviewed the summary. Helena stepped closer. 3 people may die at dawn because reviewing the summary was easier than questioning your brother. For once, Alistair had no defense. Mercer ordered the doors locked and posted a guard beside Thomas. Helena was escorted back to her bedroom, but he allowed Clara to remain with her. Once alone, Helena opened her hand. Thomas's key was small, blackened by soot, and stamped with the number 3. Furnace 3. She crossed to the wall behind her wardrobe and pressed a carved wooden rose. A narrow service panel opened into darkness. Clara raised the lamp. If we are caught, Samuel Reed dies. Thomas may be murdered, and 2 other prisoners will vanish with the truth. They entered the hidden corridor and descended toward the mint yard. Furnace 3 had been cold for months. Helena unlocked the maintenance hatch and found no gold inside, only bundles of official documents, blank execution orders, and dozens of counterfeit royal seals. Beneath them lay a shipping manifest. 2,000 false sovereigns were scheduled to leave Ravenscroft before sunrise. Their destination was not London. It was the military payroll office at Portsmouth. At the bottom of the manifest appeared Alistair's signature. Behind Helena, the furnace room door opened. Percival stood there holding a pistol. Percival closed the furnace room door behind him. Put the manifest down. Helena kept one hand over the document. If you shoot me, the entire house will hear. The mint tested firearms here for 30 years. No one investigates a single explosion. He aimed the pistol at Clara. The paper, Helena. She handed him the manifest, but not before noticing a second sheet beneath it. While Percival watched her face, Clara quietly covered the hidden page with her skirt. You copied my engraving, Helena said. You stole my father's register and forged Alistair's signature. Percival folded the manifest into his coat. My brother's signature is genuine. He believed he was approving a routine shipment. That does not make the ink less binding. Helena understood his design. The false money would enter the naval payroll under Alistair's authority. Sailors would receive worthless coins. Disorder would follow, perhaps even mutiny. Percival could escape with the stolen gold, while the Duke and Duchess of Ravenscroft faced charges of treason. Why Portsmouth? She asked. Because thousands of angry sailors make excellent witnesses against the man whose name appears on their pay. You intend to destroy your own brother. Percival's expression hardened. Alistair inherited the title, the estate, and every privilege merely by being born first. He even inherited you, and then allowed you to rule the mint as though competence were more important than blood. So, this is resentment. This is correction. A bell rang in the main building. Percival glanced toward the door. Helena moved. She seized a shovel and struck the pistol aside as he fired. The shot tore into the brickwork. Clara pulled the furnace lever, releasing a cloud of ash into Percival's face. Helena grabbed the second document, and both women ran through the maintenance passage. Percival followed, coughing and shouting for the guards. They reached the courtyard as Captain Mercer and 2 soldiers emerged from the hall. Alistair came behind them. "My wife attacked me," Percival shouted. Helena gave Mercer the page Clara had saved. It listed 3 prisoners, Samuel Reed, Thomas Hale, and Captain Elias Mercer. Mercer read his own name twice. Alistair took the paper from him. "Why would Percival order your execution?" "Because I traced the false coins to a treasury clerk he has been paying for 7 months. Percival stepped from the passage, his face gray with ash. "That document came from Helena's hiding place." "It came from Furnace 3, Clara said. "Your mistress would say anything to save herself." Clara flinched, but Helena stood between them. "She has a name," Helena said, "and unlike you, she has not lied tonight." Alistair examined the signatures. "This is not my hand. The shipping manifest was," Helena replied. 2,000 counterfeit sovereigns are leaving for Portsmouth before sunrise." Percival laughed. "And where is this alleged manifest? You took it. Then she has no proof." Alistair looked from his brother to Helena. Doubt was no longer hidden in his face, but doubt was not yet courage. Helena turned to Mercer. "Search him." Percival raised the pistol again. This time, Mercer struck his wrist before he could fire. The weapon fell. 2 guards forced Percival to his knees and searched his coat. The manifest was gone. Only seconds had passed since they left the furnace room. He could not have destroyed it. Then Helena saw a corner of folded paper burning inside the lamp near the passage entrance. Percival smiled as the final piece curled into flame. Alistair seized him by the collar. "What have you done?" "What you permitted me to do," Percival replied. "I used the authority you gave me." The words struck Alistair into silence. Mercer ordered Percival confined under guard. Then he faced Helena. "Without that manifest, we cannot legally stop a Crown-authorized shipment." "We do not need the document," she said. "I can prove the coins are false." "How?" "Real gold does not turn black in wine. Something was added to the coating so the fraud would reveal itself publicly. The blackened coin contains the formula." Alistair stared at her. "Can you identify it?" "In my laboratory, Percival controls the laboratory. Not anymore." For the first time, Alistair removed the brass assay key from his brother's belt and offered it to Helena. She did not take it. "A key returned in private does not restore the authority you stripped from me before 60 witnesses." His hand slowly lowered. "Then tell me what you require." "A public correction, full access to the mint, and no order issued under your name without my examination until this shipment is stopped." Alistair's pride resisted. Helena saw it happen. Then the distant sound of wagon wheels rolled across the yard. Mercer ran toward the outer gate. A guard shouted from the watchtower. The Portsmouth convoy had departed early. Worse, Thomas Hale's room was empty. On his blood-stained bed lay a message written in Percival's hand: "Bring Helena to Newgate, or Reed dies before midnight." Helena read Percival's message once, then handed it to Mercer. "He wants me in London so the convoy can reach Portsmouth unchallenged. And if we ignore him, Reed dies," Mercer said. Alistair looked toward the road beyond the gates. "We divide our men. Mercer takes Helena to Newgate. I ride after the convoy." "No," Helena said. "Your signature authorized those wagons. The escort will obey you until Percival's accomplices convince them you have been compromised." "Then what do you propose?" "First, restore my authority." Alistair hesitated only briefly. He ordered the mint bell rung and summoned every worker to the central hall. Men arrived half-dressed, some still carrying furnace tools. Before the same press where he had humiliated Helena, Alistair stood beside her. "My accusation against the Duchess was made without a complete examination of the evidence," he announced. "Until the royal inquiry concludes, her authority over the assay rooms and production records is fully restored. Every worker will obey her instructions." Helena faced him. That corrects my position. It does not correct the accusation. Alistair understood. I also withdraw my claim that she falsified the reports, he continued. I ignored her warnings, trusted incomplete summaries, and transferred power to my brother without proper scrutiny. The consequences of that decision are mine. The workers remained silent, but several raised their heads. Helena accepted the brass key. It was not forgiveness. It was merely the first piece of what Alistair owed. Inside her laboratory, she placed the blackened sovereign beneath a magnifying lens. Clara lit the burners, while Mercer locked the doors. Helena scraped a fragment of the coating into a glass dish and added diluted acid. A sharp odor rose from the liquid. Silver sulfide, she said. The outer layer was treated to darken deliberately when exposed to compounds in the wine. Why make the fraud reveal itself? Alistair asked. To ensure the king discovered it personally. Mercer understood first. Percival did not merely intend to steal gold. He wanted a royal scandal attached to the Ravenscroft name. Helena examined the copper core. Along its edge ran a thin red line. This coin was washed in a solution containing arsenic. Could it have poisoned the king? Clara asked. Not from brief contact, but Percival wanted the treasury to believe an assassination had been attempted. Alistair's face lost its color. The accusation would not be simple counterfeiting. It would be treason against the crown, with Alistair's signatures and Helena's marks providing the proof. A pounding sounded at the laboratory door. One of Mercer's guards entered carrying a small leather pouch found in Percival's rooms. Inside were receipts from an inn near Newgate, payments to a treasury clerk, and a map showing the Portsmouth Road. 3 places had been circled. Helena studied the marks. These are toll gates. The convoy must pass all 3, Alistair said. No, the first 2 are distractions. The third stands near an abandoned copper works. She traced the route with her finger. They will stop there and transfer the crates. The official wagons will continue carrying stones while the false coins travel by a different road. Mercer checked the clock. We have less than 4 hours before midnight. Send riders to the copper works, Helena said. But they must not open the crates. Why? Percival may have trapped them with arsenic powder. Anyone disturbing the seals could become ill, and Helena's formula book would be blamed. Alistair issued the order. Then he asked Mercer for a horse. You are still going after the convoy, Helena said. I signed the authorization. I will be present when it is stopped. And Reed, I am coming to Newgate first. Helena shook her head. You cannot repair every failure by standing beside me after creating it. No, but I can confess to the prison governor that the warrants were signed through my negligence. His answer carried no demand for gratitude. Before they departed, Helena went to question Percival. His guarded room was empty. The window stood open, and one royal guard lay unconscious beneath it. On the floor was a broken handcuff and a strip of paper bearing the seal of the treasury. Mercer examined it. Someone with royal credentials released him. The conspiracy extended beyond Ravenscroft. They rode through the night, reaching London shortly before midnight. At Newgate, the governor led them toward the condemned cells. Samuel Reed's cell was open. The executioner lay dead in the corridor. From somewhere below came Thomas Hale's voice, crying for help. Then the prison bells began ringing. Fire! A guard shouted. Smoke poured up the stairwell as every cell door in the lower passage opened at once. And through the confusion, Helena saw Percival leading Samuel Reed toward the underground exit. Helena ran after Percival. Smoke rolled along the ceiling as prisoners poured from their cells. Some fled toward the yard, others fought guards in the narrow passage. Percival dragged Samuel Reed by a chain fastened around his wrists. "Samuel!" Helena shouted. The old die-cutter turned. Bruises covered his face, but recognition sharpened his eyes. Percival shoved him through the underground doorway. Before Helena could follow, a burning beam collapsed between them. "Thomas is below," Mercer called. Helena faced an impossible choice: pursue the man who could expose the conspiracy, or save the wounded apprentice who had risked his life to warn her. "Go after Percival," she told Mercer. "I will find Thomas." Alistair seized a wet blanket and followed her down the smoke-filled stairs. "You should leave," Helena said. "I abandoned your warnings once. I will not abandon your witness." They found Thomas, chained inside a storage cell. Flames were already creeping across the wooden door. Alistair covered Helena while she used the furnace key to work the lock. The key fit. Thomas had given it to her not merely to open Furnace 3, but because Percival used identical locks to secure every part of his operation. The chain released seconds before the ceiling began to crack. Alistair lifted Thomas over his shoulder. Helena led them through the smoke, following the current of cooler air until they emerged into the prison yard. Mercer returned alone. "Percival escaped by boat," he said. "He took Reed." Thomas coughed violently. "Not as a hostage." "What do you mean?" Helena asked. "Mr. Reed agreed to go. Percival promised to spare his daughter." Helena knew Reed had one child, Margaret, employed as a clerk in the Treasury's coinage office. "She is the official inside the Treasury," Helena realized. Thomas shook his head. "She discovered the false records. Percival threatened to hang her as the author unless Reed copied your engraving." That explained the precision of the imitation. Reed had taught Helena many of her father's methods. Under coercion, he could reproduce her most private marks. "Where are they going?" Mercer asked. "To the copper works. Reed must certify the coins before the naval paymaster accepts them." A prison bell struck midnight. The execution deadline had been a diversion. Percival had never intended to kill Reed before extracting one final service from him. Mercer sent word to the river patrol and prepared horses. Before leaving, the prison governor brought Alistair the 3 supposed death warrants recovered from the executioner's chamber. Each bore the Duke's signature. Alistair stared at the pages. "I thought I was authorizing interrogations." "You did not read them," Helena said. "No. You believed Percival because he offered you speed, obedience, and profit. You distrusted me because I demanded caution. I know. Knowing now does not erase what your signature nearly did. I do not expect it to." His answer surprised her, but there was no time to examine it. They rode south with Thomas, protected in a guarded carriage. Near dawn, they reached the abandoned copper works. The official wagons stood empty outside. Fresh tracks led toward the river warehouse. Inside, hundreds of wooden crates were stacked beneath armed watchmen. Samuel Reed stood at a table, examining a false sovereign, while Percival held a pistol against Margaret's head. The naval paymaster waited beside them. Percival saw Helena and smiled. "Perfect timing. The Duchess herself can certify the shipment." Helena looked at the crates, then at the nervous soldiers guarding them. "They contain copper coins coated with poisoned metal," she announced. "Open them carelessly, and every man in this building may breathe arsenic dust." The guards stepped away. Percival pressed the pistol harder against Margaret's temple. "Certify them, or she dies." Reed's hands trembled. Helena approached the table and lifted the coin. She weighed it in her palm, then struck it against the stone surface. Its false coating split. Before the paymaster could react, Percival fired. Alistair moved between the pistol and Helena. The shot struck him in the chest. As he fell, Percival overturned a lantern onto the nearest crate. Flames raced across the arsenic-treated packing straw. Within seconds, poisonous smoke began filling the warehouse. Helena dropped beside Alistair. The bullet had entered high beneath his collarbone. Blood spread across his coat, but he remained conscious. "Leave me," he said. "Stop the fire." For once, Helena obeyed, not because he commanded her, but because dozens of lives depended on it. "Everyone outside," she shouted. "Cover your mouths. Do not touch the crates." The soldiers hesitated until the naval paymaster repeated her order. Mercer tackled Percival near the warehouse door, but two armed watchmen attacked him. In the confusion, Percival pulled Margaret toward the river exit. Samuel Reed seized the fallen pistol. "Release my daughter." Percival turned and fired a second weapon hidden inside his coat. The shot struck Reed in the leg. Margaret broke free and ran to her father. Percival disappeared through the smoke. Helena had no time to pursue him. Flames were spreading toward the center of the warehouse. If the arsenic-treated straw burned completely, poisonous smoke would drift toward the nearby workers' village. She studied the roof, the drainage trench, and the old copper washing tanks outside. "Break the northern wall," she told the paymaster. "Then open the water gates. That will flood the entire warehouse." Exactly. Men used loading hooks and axes to tear through the weakened boards. Mercer opened the rusted sluice gate. Water rushed from the washing tanks, sweeping beneath the crates and extinguishing the burning straw. The remaining smoke escaped through the broken wall instead of collecting inside. When the danger had passed, Helena returned to Alistair. A surgeon from the convoy removed the bullet. It had missed the major artery, but Alistair had lost too much blood to travel. As the surgeon worked, Alistair looked at Helena. "I accused you before everyone," he said faintly. "Yet you still saved my life. I stopped a bullet from becoming a funeral. Do not mistake that for forgiveness. I will not." Nearby, Samuel Reed handed Helena a small metal cylinder he had concealed inside his boot. "Percival forced me to copy your marks," he said. "But I kept the first trial die and every instruction he sent. Inside the cylinder were miniature engraving sketches, coded payment records, and letters bearing Percival's seal. One letter named his treasury accomplice, Sir Malcolm Vane, Deputy Supervisor of Military Payments. Margaret added her testimony. Vane altered the gold delivery records and supplied Percival with blank royal warrants. Tomorrow morning he will present evidence before the Privy Council accusing both of you of poisoning the king's coin. Then we appear before the council first, Helena said. Mercer shook his head. Vane is already in London. By the time we arrive, the warrants may be issued. Helena examined the trial die. Reed had deliberately cut one hidden symbol beneath the king's collar, a tiny raven with a broken wing. Did Percival notice this? No. It appears only under magnification. Are the same marks on every counterfeit die? Yes. That symbol could connect the coins to Reed's coerced work and Percival's instructions, but they still needed the recovered shipment delivered intact as evidence. A soldier ran in from the river. The crates are gone. During the fire, Percival's men had loaded them onto a barge. It was already moving downstream toward Portsmouth. If those coins reach the naval payroll, Mercer said, Vane will claim Helena authorized them before fleeing. Alistair tried to rise but collapsed. Helena took his signet ring. I need written authority to seize the barge. He signed the order with a trembling hand. Then Helena made him add a second statement, a complete admission that he had dismissed her warnings, transferred control to Percival, and signed documents without reading them. You intend to use this against me, he said, if necessary. Alistair pressed his seal into the wax. Then use it. Helena rowed toward Portsmouth with Mercer, Margaret, and Samuel Reed. Near the harbor, dawn revealed the barge approaching a naval warship. Sailors were already lifting the first crate aboard. Then, cannon ports opened along the ship's side. A naval officer raised a speaking trumpet. "Duchess of Ravenscroft, you are charged with treason against the crown. Surrender, or we fire." Helena raised Alistair's sealed order above her head. "I carry the Duke of Ravenscroft's authorization to seize that barge." The naval officer did not lower the speaking trumpet. "Sir Malcolm Vane has already declared the Duke compromised and his wife responsible for attempted regicide." Mercer moved beside Helena. "If they fire, the shot may strike the poisoned crates, which would spread arsenic across the harbor," she replied. Percival had positioned the barge beside a naval vessel deliberately. Any attempt to stop the shipment could be transformed into an attack on the Royal Navy. Helena called to the sailors. "Take 1 coin from the first crate. Strike it against the deck." The officer hesitated. "If I am lying, you lose nothing. If Vane is lying, you are about to pay the king's sailors with poisoned copper." A boatswain opened the crate and selected a sovereign. He struck it with a hammer. The thin gold coating split, revealing blackened copper. Angry voices erupted across the deck. Percival appeared on the barge and fired at the boatswain. The shot missed, but panic spread among the sailors. "Do not open the remaining crates," Helena shouted. "The packing material is contaminated." Percival cut the rope securing the barge to the warship. The current pulled it toward the harbor warehouses while he overturned a lantern. Helena understood his intention immediately. A fire among the naval stores would destroy the evidence and make the attack appear to be her work. She mounted the nearest patrol boat with Mercer and 6 Marines. They reached the barge as flames climbed the first crate. Helena soaked her coat in seawater and smothered the fire, while Mercer fought Percival near the stern. Percival struck him with an iron hook and jumped onto the quay. Margaret followed, determined not to lose the man who had threatened her father. "Margaret, wait," Helena called. Too late. Percival seized her and dragged her into a customs warehouse. Helena pursued them alone. Inside, Sir Malcolm Vane stood beside a desk covered with official papers. 2 guards wore treasury uniforms, but Helena recognized the Ravenscroft crest beneath their altered coats. Vane held an arrest warrant. "You have been remarkably inconvenient, Duchess, and you have been careless." She placed Reed's trial die on the desk. For the first time, Vane's confidence weakened. "The hidden raven connects every counterfeit coin to the dies Percival forced Samuel Reed to make," Helena said. "His letters connect those dies to you." Vane glanced at Percival. "You said Reed kept nothing." Percival tightened his grip around Margaret's throat. "Then kill all 3 of them." Vane did not move. Helena saw the fracture between them. "You intended Percival to take the blame," she told Vane. "That is why his private crest appears on the broken die. Once the Ravenscrofts were convicted, you planned to execute him as the final conspirator." Percival stared at Vane. "She is trying to divide us." "Ask him where the stolen gold is," Helena said. "It is not on the barge. It is not at the copper works. Vane moved it before you ever received control of the mint." Percival released Margaret and turned toward his accomplice. That moment was enough. Margaret struck his injured wrist. Helena pulled her away as Mercer and the Marines entered through the rear door. Percival ran for the river. Vane remained beside the desk, attempting to burn the arrest warrants. Mercer stopped him and placed him in irons. But Percival reached a waiting boat and escaped into the fog. The recovered papers revealed the full operation. Vane had altered treasury deliveries, Percival had replaced gold with copper, and both had used Helena's copied marks. Alistair's careless signatures authorized transport and gave them access to the royal contract. Yet one document was missing, the original ledger showing where the stolen gold had gone. Without it, Vane could argue that Helena had taken the gold herself. A sealed summons arrived before noon. Helena, Alistair, Reed, Margaret, Vane, and Percival were ordered to appear before the Privy Council the next morning. "Percival will not attend," Mercer said. "He will," Helena replied. "He needs me convicted before Vane turns against him." That evening, Helena returned to the temporary quarters where Alistair was recovering. He listened as she explained the evidence. "You have enough to clear yourself," he said. "Not completely. What is missing?" "The gold ledger." Alistair closed his eyes. "I know where it is." Helena went still. "Percival gave it to me weeks ago," he admitted. "He claimed it proved you had diverted Crown gold into a private account. I locked it in my parliamentary desk. You possessed the evidence and never confronted me? I intended to use it when I petitioned for a legal separation." The betrayal landed more deeply than the accusation at the Mint. Alistair had not merely doubted her, he had quietly prepared to destroy their marriage and reputation before allowing her to defend herself. Then, a pistol clicked behind Helena. Percival stood in the doorway. "Thank you, brother," he said. "Now I know exactly where to find the ledger." Percival held the pistol steady. "Give me Alistair's parliamentary key." Helena stepped between him and the bed. "The ledger proves Vane stole the gold. Why destroy the only evidence that might reduce your sentence?" "Because it also proves I helped him. You copied my marks, kidnapped witnesses, set 2 fires, and attempted to poison the naval payroll. That ledger is no longer your greatest problem." Percival's face twisted. "You always speak as though intelligence gives you the right to command everyone. No, but it gives me the ability to recognize an unloaded pistol." His eyes flickered. Helena had counted both shots at the warehouse. Percival had never reloaded. She seized the water pitcher and smashed it against his wrist. Alistair rose, despite his wound, and drove his shoulder into his brother. They fell against the door as Mercer and 2 guards rushed inside. Percival reached for a knife, but Alistair caught his arm. For one terrible second, the brothers stared at each other. "I trusted you," Alistair said. Percival laughed bitterly. "You trusted anyone who told you that you were right." The accusation was cruel, but it was true. Mercer placed Percival in irons. This time, 4 guards escorted him to a military cell. Before dawn, Helena and Mercer entered Alistair's parliamentary office. The gold ledger lay inside a locked drawer beneath a draft petition for marital separation. Helena saw her own name on the first page. The petition accused her of financial dishonesty, disobedience, and conduct unworthy of a duchess. Alistair had prepared to strip her of access to the estate, remove her from the Mint, and send her to a remote dower house. There was no evidence attached, only Percival's allegations. Alistair stood behind her, pale from blood loss. "I never submitted it. You prepared it." "Yes." "You had already decided I was guilty." "Yes." His refusal to excuse himself made the truth no easier to bear. Helena folded the petition and placed it with the evidence. "What are you doing?" "Taking this before the council. That document concerns our marriage. You used your public authority to prepare my private destruction. The council must understand why Percival believed he could frame me so easily." Alistair lowered his head. "Then present it." At the Privy Council chamber, ministers, treasury commissioners, naval officers, and royal legal advisers filled the benches. The blackened sovereign sat inside a glass case before them. Sir Malcolm Vane entered under guard. Percival followed in chains. Helena carried the trial die, the recovered letters, Alistair's sealed confession, and the gold ledger. The Lord President began with the charge against her. Duchess Ravenscroft, 43 fraudulent coins bear your private assay mark. A shipment of 2,000 more left your husband's mint under your authority. How do you answer? The mark was copied after my father's register was stolen. The shipment left after my authority had been removed. She called Samuel Reed. He testified that Percival had threatened Margaret and forced him to reproduce Helena's engraving. Under magnification, he showed the council the tiny broken-wing raven hidden on every false die. Margaret then identified Vane's alterations in the Treasury records. Thomas Hale described how the dies were changed after Helena completed her inspections. The naval paymaster confirmed that Helena exposed the shipment and prevented the poisoned crates from entering circulation. Finally, Helena opened the gold ledger. It recorded each legitimate delivery, the missing weight, and the private accounts receiving payment from the stolen metal. Those accounts belonged to Vane and Percival. Vane rose violently. The ledger was kept by the Duchess. She could have written every entry. No, Helena said. The figures are in Percival's hand. The chemical codes are Reed's, and every payment bears your Treasury reference number. Percival turned toward Vane. You said those numbers could not be traced. The room erupted. The Lord President ordered silence. Then Alistair stepped forward without being called. My wife warned me repeatedly, he said. I rejected her reports, removed her authority, and allowed my brother access to the mint. I signed documents without reading their final pages. The conspiracy succeeded because my vanity made me willing to distrust the person most qualified to stop it. He placed the separation petition on the table. I also prepared this document using accusations I never verified. Whatever judgment is made today, the Duchess must not bear the consequences of my choices. Helena watched the ministers read the petition. Alistair's title could not protect him from what he had admitted publicly. For the first time, the harm done to her had been named by the man who caused it, but the Lord President had not yet declared her innocent. A royal secretary entered, carrying a second ledger recovered from Percival's London residence. This volume records payments to an account opened in the name of Helena Ravenscroft. Percival smiled. The secretary opened it before the council. According to its pages, Helena had received a portion of the stolen gold every month for 2 years. The Lord President looked at her coldly. Duchess, can you prove this ledger is false? Helena examined the first entry. The handwriting resembled hers perfectly. Then she noticed the ink. It contained a metallic blue pigment that had not existed when the earliest entries were supposedly written. She closed the ledger. Yes, she said, and I can prove who forged it before every person in this room. Helena placed the second ledger beside the blackened sovereign. These entries claim to begin 2 years ago, she said, but the ink contains finely ground cobalt glass, the blue pigment introduced into the Treasury office only 3 months ago. Sir Malcolm Vane leaned forward. That proves nothing. It proves every entry was written recently. Helena requested vinegar, a clean cloth, and the magnifying lens used to inspect the false coins. A clerk brought them. She dampened the cloth and pressed it against the earliest entry. Blue pigment separated from the black ink and stained the fabric. Margaret Reed then produced the Treasury purchase record. It showed that Vane's office had received the cobalt-based writing ink 12 weeks earlier. He had signed for it personally. The Lord President examined both documents. "And the handwriting?" he asked. "Copied from letters stolen from my apartments," Helena replied. "But the forger repeated a form of the letter R that I stopped using after injuring my finger 6 years ago." She placed a recent sample of her handwriting beside the ledger. The difference was small but consistent. Samuel Reed confirmed it. Percival abruptly stood. His chain struck the floor. "Vane wrote the ledger," he said. "He ordered me to provide samples of Helena's hand." Vane turned on him. "You designed the false dies because you promised me half the gold." Their alliance collapsed before the council. Under questioning, Percival admitted stealing Helena's father's register and forcing Reed to copy her assay marks by threatening Margaret. He described how genuine gold was removed from incoming deliveries and replaced with copper blanks. Vane altered the treasury weights, supplied blank warrants, and arranged for the false coins to be placed before the king. The coins were designed to turn black publicly, so suspicion would fall immediately upon Helena. The arsenic-treated packing material strengthened the appearance of an assassination attempt. Their final goal had been to convict Helena and Alistair of treason, destroy the Ravenscroft contract, and escape with the stolen gold. But the scheme required access that neither man originally possessed. Alistair had given them that access. He had dismissed Helena's warnings, removed her authority, trusted Percival's summaries, and signed documents he had not read. He had also prepared a separation petition based on unverified accusations, giving Percival confidence that Helena could be publicly blamed without her husband defending her. The Lord President addressed Helena. "The council finds no evidence that you participated in the theft, counterfeiting, or attempted poisoning. Your actions prevented the fraudulent shipment from reaching the Royal Navy. Your name is cleared of every charge." A royal proclamation restored Helena's professional reputation and recorded that the copied assay mark had been used without her knowledge. Sir Malcolm Vane was stripped of office and remanded for trial on charges of counterfeiting, corruption, kidnapping, and treason. His property was seized to repay the treasury. Percival was denied access to the Ravenscroft estate and committed for trial for counterfeiting, attempted murder, coercion of witnesses, and arson. Any remaining inheritance was placed toward compensating Samuel, Margaret, Thomas, and the workers injured during the fires. The judgment against Alistair was different. The Crown suspended the Ravenscroft minting contract. Alistair lost his seat on the Treasury Commission and was required to surrender oversight of the mint during a full royal audit. The losses would be repaid from his personal income rather than Helena's marriage settlement. He accepted every condition. Before the council dispersed, Alistair requested permission to speak. He stood facing the commissioners, witnesses, and journalists permitted to record the judgment. "I accused my wife without proof," he said. "I removed her from work she had performed with distinction and gave her authority to a man she had repeatedly warned me against. I mistook caution for disobedience and agreement for loyalty. The damage to her name was not caused only by my brother's deception. It was caused by my pride and my willing distrust." He turned toward Helena. "I cannot ask the woman I publicly condemned to repair the marriage I privately prepared to destroy. I withdraw the petition against her. I will transfer the assay laboratory, its equipment, and the income attached to her father's methods into an independent trust under her control. Whether she remains my wife in anything but law will be her decision alone." Helena listened without rescuing him from the consequences of his words. 3 months later, the royal audit returned control of the mint, not to Alistair, but to an independent board chaired by Helena. Women could not hold every formal crown office available to men, but the contract recognized her authority as chief technical advisor and proprietor of the assay methods. Samuel Reed became superintendent of dyes. Margaret was appointed record keeper. Thomas, fully recovered, resumed his apprenticeship with wages paid from Percival's forfeited allowance. Clara received a permanent position managing Helena's household and private accounts. Alistair moved into the smaller western residence. He published a correction in every newspaper that had reported Helena's supposed guilt and paid compensation to every worker dismissed for defending her. He wrote to Helena only once. "I mistook remorse for something that should earn me your return. It does not. I will continue repairing what I damaged, whether or not you ever choose to see me again." She did not answer immediately. On the morning the mint reopened, 60 workers gathered beneath the great iron press. The brass nameplate Percival had torn down had been repaired. Alistair attended, but stood among the visitors rather than on the inspection platform. A worker offered Helena the old assay key. She looked at the object, then at the newly installed board, displaying the names of everyone authorized to inspect the records. No single duke, brother, or advisor would ever again control the dyes, samples, and accounts without oversight. Helena placed the old key inside a glass case beside the first blackened sovereign. It would remain there as evidence of what happened when authority was granted without accountability. Then she mounted a new brass plate on the laboratory door herself. Helena Ravenscroft, chief assayer. When the first lawful sovereign emerged from the press, Helena tested its weight, examined its edge, and struck it against the stone. The clear ring filled the hall. This time, no one spoke over her.